Joining us to take that discussion forward, Amber Dubey of KPMG India. Shereen also joins us. Shereen, over to you.
Well, thanks very much. Yes, let's go right across now to Amber Dubey. Amber, you're not particularly enthusiastic. You believe that there is going to be a tepid response to the expression of interest for Air India. Why do you believe that to be the case?
Yes, Shereen, hi. I think, first of all, it's a great move by the government of India, so it has to be appreciated. But the way the deal has been structured, it's not very attractive in terms of the debt and people issue. The debt and people are the big ones. And then there are other things like that Air India has to be operated at arm's length. We have uncertainty about there's a mandatory use of Air India brand. There has to be a forced IPO. Now, these are things which I guess most bidders find very, very onerous. Shereen?
So, Amber, if the government were to revise the terms for the expression of interest, we don't know whether they will at this point or not, but if there were to be some sort of sweeteners that were added to entice prospective bidders, what would you think the priority should be in terms of possible revisions?
So the biggest revision has to be on the biggest problems, which is, as I said, debt and people. The debt has to be completely cleaned out. It's about 33,000 crores. Nobody in India or abroad can take up 33,000 crores as additional debt. And then the people issue. Nobody wants to take 10 or 15,000 people on their books because, I mean, it's, as I said, in aviation, it's so risky that just about, 10 pilots can bring an airline down at a particular location. So I think the people issue and the debt issue are the biggest ones. Rest are issues which can be resolved. Those are minor issues. Shereen?
So far, Amber, we've seen Indigo say they're not in the fray, Jet saying they're not in the fray, SpiceJet saying it's not in the fray. Sources suggest that even Tata SIA is unlikely to bid, at least at this stage. We don't have an official confirmation on that just yet. Emirates telling us that they're not in the fray. Who could possibly be interested, and do you believe that some of these airline companies, specifically Jet and Indigo, may in fact reconsider if some of the constraints that we just talked about are in fact diluted?
Yes, absolutely. Because see, typically, Shereen, I've seen dozens of these bids. When these bids happen, typically people keep their options too close to the chest. So even if you don't want to bid, you don't reveal it to your competition. Just here. Here, it's a funny case where not even at the RFP, even before the EY stage and a month before the EY stage, people have just formally said we are not ready. Let's not forget, Shereen, that most of these carriers also listed companies, so they have to be very wary of the stock market reaction, even on speculation and rumors. Okay, so maybe this could be a pressure tactic to tell the government not working out. And then one after the other, with every airline, possible airline saying out, it is a clear message to the government that perhaps the deal structuring was not maybe done well and it needs to be changed. So I guess some changes have to be done quickly. Otherwise, anyway, this 45-day thing has to be moved because these things cannot be changed overnight. You have to go back to the cabinet and all these things, paperwork, etc. takes time. Shereen?
You're saying that this could amount to pressure tactics on the part of airline companies. But Amber, let me also ask you then, in terms of the possibility of non-airline companies being in the fray for Air India, queries, the deadline for the government to respond to queries that come in is the 16th of April. So perhaps by then we'll get some more clarity on what the questions are that prospective bidders are asking. But what about the possibility of large Indian business houses, conglomerates being interested for Air India?
Shereen, we all know airline business is not like manufacturing or running a hotel or maybe manufacturing a refrigerator. This is a very, very specialized sector where even the most experienced of people fail. Okay, so I doubt if any non-airline company would be bold enough. Even their board members are going to ask, the first question is, if it's so good, why is everybody running away? It's there for the taking because most of the big competitors have already gone off. So why are airlines still withdrawing one after the other? And if it's so good, why is everybody running away? So that is a very strong question. And I very much doubt if any non-airline company can take over Air India and make it successful. I'll be happy to be wrong, but at this moment, I don't think so. Shereen?
So I'll end then by asking you, Amber, Jayant Sinha, the Minister of State for Civil Aviation, in his conversation with us has suggested that they're hoping to get the sale done by the end of this calendar year. Given where things stand today and the possibility that we are going to see the EOI phase itself being extended, there is, of course, no confirmation at this point in time, but if there is a revision, then there is likely to be an extension of the timeline as well. Do you believe that end of the calendar year is perhaps a bit unrealistic?
Yes, this has been our feedback to the ministry in many forums that even small airlines, Shereen, they take 12 to 18 months to consummate. This is Air India. This is not just another airline. It has got, an 80 or 70-year history and legacy issues, people issues, debt issues. It's not an easy deal. And even bidders will require months and months of diligence. And it's not just diligence. When you go for a diligence, you need 3 rounds of iterations with the government, because every diligence exercise will throw some ideas. You take it to the government. Government may or may not respond favorably. Then again go back to them. So it's a very iterative process. Small airlines, as I said, take 12 to 18 months. An airline like Air India has to be drawn over a 2 to 3 year period for us. This is not, we are not selling a steel factory or a mine, iron ore mine. Okay, we're talking about Air India. Yeah. I feel 2 to 3 years is what it takes. Sorry?
All right, Amber, appreciate you joining us. That's Amber Dubey there of KPMG India. Amber expects a tepid response for the expression of interest from prospective bidders. CAPA, on the other hand, continues to expect significant investor interest in Air India, but also CAPA, as Amber was suggesting there, expects the government to revise the terms, because CAPA also believes that some of the terms are onerous. At this point. In fact, I think we do have Kapil Kaul joining us now. Well, we will be joined by him in just a moment from now. But the point is that if there is a revision, what could that revision amount to? CAPA seems to believe, as Amber Dubey of KPMG was also pointing out, that the debt issue, labour, those are constraints that the government will need to clarify on. Kapil, appreciate you joining us. We were just having a conversation with Amber Dubey of KPMG. He's not particularly enthusiastic about the response that the EOI for Air India is likely to get. We've already seen officially Jet, SpiceJet, Indigo say that they're not in the fray. Emirates telling CNBC TV 18 it's not in the fray. Tata SIA, according to sources, not particularly enthused at this point in time. So what makes you so confident that there will be takers, Kapil?
Well, Shereen, good evening. Normally when the EOIs are released, it goes through various iterations and changes, because governments know these are complex transactions. Being flexible and having an open mind on major issues is necessary. So through consultation and revising the EOI and later on the terms in the RFP, the process moves forward. So at this point of time, we're not subscribing to the speculation around the Air India's divestment at this stage. We continue to believe that the investor, there is a significant there will be significant investor interest in Air India. It's a valuable asset and for strategic and financial investors. But normally these are complex transactions. As I said, it goes through iterations, and finally, when we see the results in terms of bidding, I would expect that there would be more bidders than normally, than we expect at this stage. So I'm not subscribing to the speculation around Air India's divestment at this stage. However, it's very important, Shereen, as we discussed last time, that brand and labor are critical issues, because I don't expect anybody to invest billions of dollars and then possibly are faced with union disruptions and unexpected costs without a firm commitment from Government of India. So I think of all the issues, labor and branding are critical. One can look at reducing the debt profile and making sure that only the aircraft-related debts remain on the books of Air India for the acquirer. But debt is something that can be structured and it will reflect in valuations. But branding and labor are major critical deterrents. And I think as long as, and we have repeatedly stated that both the branding and issues relating to the labor should be stated upfront. You ring-fence the investors, both in terms of cost and disruptions in the future. So I would expect that Government of India will have an open mind, will be flexible on issues relating to branding and getting more clarity on labor, possibly reducing further non-aircraft related debt. And as we discussed last time, make a written commitment of no interference as it holds 24% equity. But as these revisions come, we don't rule out the reconsideration by Jet and Indigo, as and when the revisions in the UI are released. Tata SI, if it's not bidding, though I don't subscribe to that at this stage, but if it is not bidding, that will be significant to the outcome. So we'll wait for a formal decision by Tata's. But at this stage, we continue to believe that with further revisions, I think it's a valuable asset for strategic and financial investors. Let's not subscribe to the speculation at this stage.
Okay, as you pointed out, and as I've been caveating, there is no official confirmation yet from Tata SIA on whether they will opt out of the fray or not. But Kapil, you know, how confident do you feel? And I know you pointed out that you believe that the government will have to provide some sweeteners, will have to revise the terms of the EOI. But how confident do you feel about that, given the fact that there is significant political opposition, not just from outside the Bharatiya Janata Party, but from within as well? I mean, people like Subramaniam Swamy, in fact, tweeting a short while ago saying that I don't understand why Air India needs to be divested at all. So given the political opposition, especially when it comes to things like brand, labor, etc., do you believe that the government will be able to provide the kind of sweeteners that you're suggesting?
I have the opinion that this divestment process is ring-fenced by the Prime Minister, because once he decides, he would have, I'm sure, calculated the political costs of this decision. So I think if they have gone ahead and are aggressively executing the transaction, I would expect that there would be a political approval to this process, because without that, I don't think the speed with which the government is moving would have happened. Obviously, it's an election year. The political costs will be weighed by different parties and would have a material impact on their outcome. But at this stage, I don't think that there is any negative bias because of a political reason. This happens in such complex transactions, especially with Air India brand, that people would have different opinions. But I think the government of the day should be able to carry this through. And I wanted to just make one more point.
Well, we've got a difference of opinion. Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to make a point in addition to what we discussed, is that, you see, Indian carriers except Indigo, nobody has the balance sheet and resources to bid for Air India. Though I believe that Jet it was strategic to Jet to bid. But I don't think if they don't have the money, so opting out may be a compulsion and not a choice. And so would be with other carriers who have opted out, except maybe Indigo.
Okay, well, difference of opinion here on the program, Amber Dubey. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I meant is that if the Indian carriers don't have the money and they're not able to attract investors, that cannot be seen as a failure of the divestment process. There will be many parties, obviously.
Sure. It's not. No. There is no question that is a reflection on the government's ability to take the divestment forward. It is, of course, incumbent on companies themselves on being able to muster the resources to be able to be part of the divestment process. But we've got a difference of opinion here. Kapil Kaul of CAPA suggesting that with some revisions, there could be interest for Air India, an enthusiastic interest from Air India. Amber Dubey believes that there will have to be revisions for the government to be able to attract bidders. So there is unanimity on the panel that there needs to be revisions to the terms that the government has set for the Air India disinvestment. Kapil Kaul, Amber Dubey, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18.